Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, we are talking about the top 21 in-demand soft skills, just in life, period, in the work world, but also just in life. Number 2 is responsibility. This is a big one right here. Now I'm reading from Ionos. Quote, "You can work well independently and assess the consequences of your actions correctly, as well as accept them and use them for further development. People with personal responsibility stand up for what they do. They are mature and self-determined, but also solidary. Personal responsibility does not rule out taking responsibility for others. As a self-reliant person, you master the challenges of everyday life on your own. This includes standing by your own mistakes, being liable for any damages that may have arisen, and remedying them independently." Close quote. Boy, there's a lot in there right there. Man, responsibility. So what I'm reading here from Ionos, I should have said this at the beginning, is they are writing out the positive traits of someone who has the skill of responsibility. That's the way that they're laying this out. The very first sentence here in the description of responsibility that a lot of people could benefit from. You work well independently, meaning you figure things out on your own. You can assess the consequences of your actions and accept those consequences and use them for further development. In other words, when you mess up, because you will mess up because you're human and nobody is perfect, you accept the fact that you made mistakes. You accept the consequences of those mistakes, but you don't allow them to beat you down. You don't allow the failures of your past, whether your past was 30 minutes ago or 10 years ago, you don't allow the failures of your past to hold you back from your current and future success. You look at them and say, okay, now I know how this goes. Now I know what I can do moving forward. I'll give you an example. Just today, before I started recording, I heated up some pizza. I had like 3 slices of pizza from a pizza that I bought yesterday. And I noticed when I was looking up, because I tried to heat up pizza in the toaster oven before, but the pizza was too soft. Like the crust gets all soft, and I didn't like that. I like the crust to be a good amount of crispy. So I read on Google that if you take the tray in the toaster oven and you move it up to higher in the toaster oven, so it's closer to the flames, whatever they call them, the heating lights, whatever they are, inside the toaster oven, that the pizza will be crispier. So this is what I did. I took the tray and I moved it to higher up in the toaster oven. So then I put my pizza in there, and then what happened is all the crust got all burnt up. Now I like the crust. That's one of my favorite parts of the pizza is eating the crust when it's nice and crispy. I'm talking about the crust at the end, not just the crust on the bottom. But the crust got so burnt that I couldn't even eat the crust. But when I pulled the pizza out, I said, okay, well, at least now I know that moving the thing up does work. And now I just got to pay a little bit more attention to what the temperature is and how much time I put it on. But I realized that this does work. Now I just made a mistake in the process of doing it. Albert Einstein, when he was, or was it Thomas Edison? I think it was Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison was developing the incandescent light bulb. He had, according to legend, 10,000 failures trying to develop the light bulb. And someone said to him, well, Mr. Edison, how does it feel to have failed 10,000 times to try to develop the light bulb? And Thomas Edison said, I didn't fail 10,000 times. What I did was find 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. And you may consider that to be mere semantics, and maybe it is semantics, but guess what? I did a whole episode on semantics back in episode number 1409. The concept of semantics matters a lot. It's the wording that you use, the way that you describe things, the language that you use to describe things, colors the way that you think about it, the way you see it, and in the future, what actions you will take or what you won't take. So responsibility is you understanding that there are consequences to your actions, understanding that you may have screwed up or messed up at some point, but you take responsibility. You stand up for what you do. You take ownership of your actions. You don't compare, or you don't say, well, yeah, I did this, but this person did that. No, that's not taking responsibility. If you're putting a but in there, then you're negating everything that you said before that. A responsible person is, and these are in bold here in this description from Ionos, mature and self-determined. I don't know if you remember the episode that I did on self-determinism, which was back in episode number, I talked about self-determinism a couple times, but episode 1259. Your measure of personal power is self-determinism, which is a very simple concept of you deciding, you determining, this is what I'm going to do with my life, this is how I'm going to this is the outcome that I'm going to achieve, and then you taking responsibility for making that outcome happen. Now, are you able to just abracadabra make things happen in your life just because you decided that things are going to happen that way? No and yes. No, you can't always control outcomes in life. Of course, you can't control other people or the weather or basically anything other than yourself. But when you have a high level of self-determinism, often, and if you know anyone who fits this description, or if you are this person who fits this description, usually you end up getting a lot of things that you want in life. You notice that? It seems kind of weird, right? But it's not weird if you're a person who has lived like this. Personal responsibility does not rule out taking responsibility for others. We just talked about in the previous point, Michael Jordan and that Last Dance documentary. Michael Jordan said in one of his books, and I think Tim Grover, his trainer, said it in his book, Relentless. He talked about how Michael would assess every game. He would just look around at his teammates because he knew not all his teammates were as reliable as he was, to be as consistent as Michael was. He would see which teammates showed up tonight mentally all the way, which teammate did not show up tonight. And Michael made his adjustments based on how many of his teammates he could depend on that night and how much he could depend on each one. And he would take responsibility for still making sure the Bulls won the game, even if all his teammates didn't show up. Now, you look around in the sports world these days, look around in the business world, look around just in everyday life these days. How many times do you see people, when they feel like the people around them or whoever is not pulling their weight, that person, so person A looks around, sees person B, C, and D, they're not pulling their weight. So what does person A do? They quit. Person A doesn't want to show up anymore. Person A doesn't want to work hard anymore. Person A doesn't want to own the situation, even though they're not responsible directly for people's B, C, and D. But the A, B, C, and D are all on the same team, but person A wants to quit because B, C, and D are not good enough. I mean, you look around in pro sports, how often do you see athletes, especially in the NBA? Nowadays, you got players just quitting. You know, they don't want to play anymore on a certain team. They don't think the team's good enough. Well, I mean, you on the team. How bad can this team be? If you want to quit, now you want to get traded to another team, you don't want to play anymore because you don't think the team is good enough. Well, I mean, you're on the team. So if the team's not that good, what does that say about you? But this is becoming a normal thing these days. So how much personal responsibility are you taking, not only for yourself, but for everyone around you when you are in the same group? Another thing about responsibility, this includes standing by your own mistakes. When you mess up, owning that mistake, not acting like it didn't happen, not just brushing over it as if it's not a big deal, not putting the blame on somebody else and saying, well, this person did this thing and that person did that thing, as if to absolve yourself of your own responsibility. Be liable for any mistakes that you make and remedy those mistakes on your own. That is part of responsibility, owning everything from the start into the finish. Now, I'm going to give you some episodes where I've talked about responsibility here on the show. Episode 1071, the privilege of responsibility. Responsibility is not a right, it is a privilege. Episode 603, you must be responsible for you, as we just talked about. Episode 359, you have a gift and a responsibility. And episode 1658, the benefits and responsibilities of ownership. And episode 1593, where we talked about your responsibilities as a CEO. And every one of us is a CEO of our own lives. If you want to be a person in control in your own life or anywhere else, you must accept responsibility. Responsibility is your ability to respond. If you want power, you must have the ability to respond. If you don't have responsibility, if you don't accept responsibility, you do not take initiative for responsibility, it is impossible for you to have power. So if you want power in life, you must have responsibility. They are a package deal.